Welcome to the Champion Circle here on ConexcionLatina. My name is Mark Soto, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today. We are here with the support of Liga de Justicia Abogados and the Liga de Justicia Foundation. And the good thing about this show is highlighting extraordinary people that are doing magical things and making a difference each and every day and making it over a long period of time. And so I'm very blessed to have someone who I consider a friend, someone who I consider a mentor, someone who I consider an inspiration to me, to my daughter, and to many in the community, none other than the Executive Director of Pronto of Long Island, Miss Vivian Hart. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, it's our pleasure to have you. And so my goal with this podcast is always to highlight individuals that can inspire others. And you are the definition of that, Vivian. I can say that because I worked with you. I can say that because I've admired you on a board and I've interacted with you even after I left Pronto. And so I want people to get to know you.
Oh my gosh, what a great opportunity. I mean, you put me on a pedestal. I don't know if I could reach that height there, but I'll let you know.
I'm sure the public is going to agree with me. So when I met you, I didn't know that you were from Honduras. So tell me a little bit about your background, your youth, and how you came to the States, at what age, etc.
Yeah. Well, it's a very interesting story, and sometimes I still feel guilty behind it and put the pressure on my parents because my parents came over here first. Like most Latino families, they came over here to make a better living. And first it was my father, and then my mother came over just after she gave birth to me. I was only 3 months old. And so since I ever knew that, I always shook my finger at my mother. How could you have left me that like a baby like that? But they were determined to make a better living for the family. And so I actually came over when I was about 2 years old. And at that time, my parents had the idea that, we want our kids to do very well in the United States. So we're going to put them in school and they're going to learn English. And unfortunately, I believe that, that because of that idea, they always spoke to us in English and made us speak to them in English. But we picked up Spanish because it was always, spoken in the house. And I lost a lot of my language because of that. I really actually just picked it up in school, taking Spanish classes and everything. But I definitely now tell everyone that I know, don't worry, your child will pick up the English. Don't lose that native language because it really brings, the full culture and confidence, to the child.
How was the experience for your family, being an immigrant family and being, on Long Island and all of that? Talk to us about that.
So it was difficult because, the integration, the diversity of the community was not there yet. We moved into Comac, and which was predominantly Caucasian. The school was all Caucasian, and it just seemed like a total cultural shock for us. But my parents were so good, faith-based, and they, always said, do the right thing, just do the right thing, and it'll be okay. You'll get through the challenges, and pretty much me and my siblings, we did. But it was a challenge. At first, you feel that you're not accepted.
Right.
You're just not. You're invisible.
Right.
Almost. And my mother was always very proud, and she always held her shoulders back whenever she went into the grocery stores and the different stores, and she just didn't make anybody, challenge her in that way. And we grew up with the pride to Mostly that we're diverse, that we have a different cultural background, that we can celebrate when other people weren't. And they found that very interesting. And eventually they came around.
Okay, okay. So did you celebrate a lot of Hispanic culture in your home? And did you find it in the community as much as it is today?
Oh, well, we were living in Comex, so we had to come to Brentwood.
Okay.
To get the food
Right,
and the
right,
culture and everything like that. And we felt very comfortable in the, in the Brentwood community.
And talk to me about your school experience. How was it going through elementary, middle, and then high school?
Yeah. So I think I felt like I was, well, not bullied, but teased a lot because, they just didn't know who you are, what you're about, because you look different.
Right.
And either they ignore you, you're not allowed to be in their groups, and or you have short-term relationships,
Right.
But I felt like because of my church background and being in church and getting the faith and being built up in that way, I had the strength to endure some of that. And I found it very good to join clubs, because it was a smaller group and people have the same interests. So that helped me a lot getting through school. And I, actually was very good in sports, and I did a lot of gymnastics.
Really?
And yes, and I
did
remember,
not know that.
Yeah,
about
I did gymnastics. I did the balance beam, the floor exercise, and the parallel bars.
Right.
I do remember one time, if I could share the story.
Of course, please do.
That I was getting an award for, like a lot of the other girls in school. My parents were invited, and it was at the Bonwood Inn, which is now Lamani Grill or something like that right now. But back then, and my both parents came to the school, to the events at the Bonwood Inn, and with a lot of other parents there, and they knew that I was getting an award, but they didn't know that I was going to perform a dance routine, because I was involved in modern dance too. And I was the only one that made a performance that day, and oh boy, when I got back to the table where my parents were sitting, they were so proud of me. I was so nervous to do it, but and that's another thing too. I always felt like I had to push myself. I felt like other people, when I looked around, they had it easy. I felt, my perception, but I felt like I always had to push myself and make myself, do something and be more courageous.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like who you are. That's in your DNA. Your courage. So once you graduated high school, what happened next?
Well, so I had all intentions of going to nursing school, and I did. I did 2 years of nursing school, but in getting into nursing school, just before graduating, because I did an accelerated program, 6 months before graduating, I took a turn. And it was the saddest thing, because I knew it wasn't for me, but I did it because my mom wanted me to do it, my dad wanted me to do it, and nursing was part of, what every mother's daughter, in my family, and they did it. You have to have a good career. You have to have a career that, you can make money, and it's a stable career, but it didn't, when I got more and more into it, I just knew that it wasn't in me. And so that was the hardest thing to tell my parents. I wanted to change. I didn't really want to go that route. And listen, back then, like, my parents weren't making a lot of money, and helping me to go to college was a big deal, but so I made a turn and I went into the Marine Corps.
When I first heard that, I was just like overwhelmed. I was like, wow, that is amazing.
Yeah, that was 1977 when I went in. 1976 I joined up, and then I went in January of 1977. And I tell you, talking about being courageous and pushing yourself, I knew I wanted to do it, though. I knew I wanted to explore the world. I wanted to have more discipline and structure in my life, and I wanted to, I was just so impressed with, patriotism and serving your country and going into a direction that wasn't very popular for women. I felt like, my parents would be proud of me. Little did I know, many years later, my mom told me that she cried the whole time. I was in group boot camp, but she let me go because, that's what I wanted to do. So, but originally, I still had the idea, I'm going to go into the military. Maybe I'll just go into the Navy and pursue the nursing career. But when I went to the Marine Corps recruiter, forget it. That was it. That was what I wanted. Right. Yeah. And I was excited to do the rifle, the shooting, the training behind that. Right. But I ended up in a good career. I ended up working for the staff judge advocate in the legal department. Right. And I got a ton of experience working there. And I went a lot of beautiful places.
Right, right. And how many years in total did you put in?
Well, I did over 21 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, of course.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, real quick, tell me, what was boot camp like for you? How diverse was it? Were there many women?
So at that point, they had, not like now where they have the mixed platoons and everything, battalions. It was a separate battalion for women. And we didn't train with the men at all at that time. But it was a good group of women, and we did mostly everything that the men did, but separately. Now you do it together. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I tell you, I was all excited and happy and took that bus ride all the way down there. And when they stopped us on the base, and that drill sergeant came into the bus, it was a whole nother world.
Just like the movies?
Oh, just like the movies. Yeah. You got to get on those yellow footprints and everything like that. I cried that night and said, I don't know if I made the right decision and how could I do this? And they were so strong and bossy and critical and everything. I wasn't really used to that, But I knew that we were all in the same boat. Right. And if my neighbor, if my sister Marine could do it, I could do it too. And I wanted to. And that's where that determination of pushing yourself. I made a commitment and I'm going to see it through. With the nursing, I made a commitment and I tried to see it through, but it wasn't with me. But somehow in the military, I felt like this is my statement. This is what I need to do.
Right. That's inspirational. Okay, so 21 years.
Yeah.
And you finally decide, okay, this is the end of this chapter. Mm-hmm. What happened next?
Well, so, I decided, I did like 15 years in active duty. Mm-hmm. And I got out and went into the reserves.
Oh, okay.
And when I went into the reserves, don't you know, Desert Shield, Desert Storm broke out. Right. So they called me back for active duty for that. So I stayed in for all that time. And then when I finally got out, I went to Casa de Amparo, and it was a shelter for runaways and abused children. Mm-hmm. Oh, boy. And that's really when, my heart for nonprofits and working with the community really started to develop. Before that, it was like my career and how I'm doing, but like now my heart was broken for people. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Wow. So that was the beginning of your nonprofit passion.
That was the beginning of my nonprofit passion.
That's amazing.
Yes. And even at that, even though I did, I worked with a former Marine officer who founded the organization. And so it was a very nice transition for me. And even at just coming in, entry level into nonprofit, I knew that this was something important to do to help people who were struggling.
Right. So how, in being young, right, and inexperienced to some degree at the beginning of your journey in nonprofits, how did you deal with the frustration of not being able to help everyone? And maybe some people actually, kind of maybe taking the wrong road and bad things happening to them, even though you were trying to help them. How did you deal with those things?
Well, coming back to faith-based, is what helped me because, when your heart is broken, you just want to give everything and want to do for everybody. But there's also the opportunity for you to realize that people have to make their own choices as well. And there is a limit to what you can do. Believe me, there were several times when I came home to my husband. I said, I want to adopt this child. I want to, do this. But I had children at that point, and I encouraged them, and I brought them in with me so they could get the experience of what it's like for people and young kids their ages that were struggling too. So it was sort of like a family affair to get through those times when you're dealing with people and you want to do and give and
right.
Everybody's involved.
Yes.
Yeah, and they help you.
Correct. I've seen you in action, so I definitely understand that. So what was your next step after that?
Yes, after
that entrance into nonprofit.
And then after that, because I was still in the reserves and moving around, I ended up in, at that point I was in California. By the way, I had a beautiful career as active duty. I went to Japan. I went to Hawaii. It was 3 years in Hawaii. It was beautiful.
Wow.
And I was in the Philippines, and it was just gorgeous to be around out of the United States, and then in the United States, different places like North Carolina and Texas. Anyway, I did go back to Texas, and that's where I started working as a probation officer in Texas. Another career change that people looked at me and says, "What are you doing?" And to be honest with you, I didn't know what I was really getting into.
Right.
I mean, I had the experience of the military and working, but being a probation officer, going out into the field and checking up on people that, had made some bad choices in their lives and everything. A little bit naive, thinking, oh, now they're going to change, They're on regulations, they're on watches and everything, but not the case, So I learned how to be a little bit more streetwise.
Okay.
Yes,
All
in
right.
that, because I did have to go to different houses and do checks.
Right.
Yeah.
So did you have to get kind of like gangster? I mean, in some occasions? Because I've never seen that part of you.
I know. People are surprised. I only do that when I have to.
Right.
Yes, in some cases I did, especially when I had to go in. I don't know if I'm saying too much here.
No, go ahead.
But when I had to go in and check on people that were on probation for DWIs and different things, and had to go in their house and open their refrigerator and check and see if they had alcohol, had to go in their garbage and check and see if there were bottles and stuff like that. And some people didn't want to let me in the door. And that's when you have to, you have to be a little bit stronger. I got to put that voice on, and good thing I had that military background, right? Yeah, no playing around then. But the funny thing is that we didn't have any weapons or anything as a probation officer.
I did not know that.
No, at that time they wouldn't even give us a baton.
Wow.
And so you just really had to make a presence,
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
So a probationary officer without a weapon, that seems almost illogical to me. Okay. So you finished that chapter.
Yeah.
Then what?
So then I came to New York. And it was only going to be temporary that I came to New York. I had, at that point, unfortunately, gone through a separation. I had 3 children. Oh, coming back home to my parents' house with 3 young children. Talk about loving parents, right? As an adult and everything. But they really did help me. And I got a job at Long Island Head Start because my sister was a teacher in the Head Start, and that's how I started my career in Head Start. And like I said, it was only temporary. I was going to go to, San Diego. I was going to start my life over there. I just needed a helping hand for a little bit. But it turned out I stayed in New York.
Happily ever after.
Yes, I just stayed, yes.
So you talk about your 3 children, right? Now tell me how difficult was it for you to balance family life and professional responsibilities? Obviously, you mentioned that you had the support of your parents, and I'm sure you had other support within the community. But talk to a viewer today that's struggling with balancing children and professionalism.
Yeah. So I would, my recommendation would be to always, be safe. Always remember the safety of your children and to bring that wholeness. And gosh, when I look back and I see, sometimes that I was a little bit too strict, too, because you want to, as a parent, you want to set the rules and you don't want them to see you struggling and everything, but that pride sometimes doesn't allow them to really feel the reasons why you're making the decision, because you mask your love behind, I'm the parent and I have to be strong and they can't see me be weak and everything. So, yeah. I love the fact that I was able to, have my parents, my church behind me, and that was my saving grace right there, because you do get, bombarded with emotions during those times. Backing up a little bit, in the military, that was one of the reasons why I decided to go into the reserves after 15 years of active duty, because I felt like I wasn't able to give them the attention that I needed to as a parent. 3 boys, by the way, I had. And to this day, none of them went into the military.
Right, interesting.
Very interesting. And too strict, too domineering, and both parents in the military at that time.
Right.
I think that played a lot. Then when I did the probation work, sometimes I had to take them with me.
Wow.
Could you believe that?
Oh my
I shouldn't say this, right? But no babysitters.
Right.
No family
Sure.
there in Texas. Friends. I just, with my kids, I just, kept them close to me all the time, and I was safe with them, but still took chances maybe that I shouldn't have taken. But then coming back to New York, it was a big relief to get the support of my parents and friends too from church and everything. So that was a struggle, raising 3 boys. And because I also was in a relationship that, we split, we split the children during the summer. They would go with their father, and during school they would be with me. So you're dealing with a lot, your own emotions, the children's emotions, and I think till this day sometimes they don't understand. They didn't understand about the relationship of of their parents and why that had to come to an end in the way that it did. But love prevails, and to this day, their father and I, we're very good, good friends, and we talk and we share things. So it all worked out in the end.
Right.
But I believe that because of my faith in the Lord and praying and depending on people that have more wisdom than myself, especially during times of high emotional strain, it helped.
Right. That's beautiful. To depend upon other people, like you said, that have a different understanding, a more spiritual understanding, is so critical to us as spiritual beings, right? And it helps our emotional and mental health as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So now I knew you when you were at Pronto, and I would imagine that many people in the community know you as Pronto. So how did you get to Pronto? Tell me that story. How did you transition to Pronto?
Sorry. So, like I said, both me and my sister we were working at Head Start, and we both received promotions as we were going on. My sister actually ended up becoming the executive director of Long Island Head Start. Beautiful. And
Is she still there now?
she's still there
right.
over
That's what I
30
thought.
years. Yes. And because of federal funding, it wasn't looked upon very good, like a nepotism or whatever, when you have an executive director and a relative there. So that's where I had to make my part with Head Start because of federal funding.
Right,
We weren't allowed to stay together.
Sure.
And so I was looking around, and I took some time off, and then I found out about Pronto. And then a funny thing about it is I only lived almost like around the corner. I have heard about Pronto, but I never went there before. So in 2008, I got the okay to submit my resume, my application, and everything. And I went to Pronto to see what it was about and do my first interview. And I tell you, that's another moment in time where I felt like, when it hits you, this is it. This is what you're supposed to be doing. I walked into the pantry there, and embarrassing, I started crying.
Right.
I even think about it now, I get a little emotional because that's where you put your finger on need in the community. And it just hit my heart and broke me. And I was like, that's it. I have to get this job. And it took like 3 or 4 interviews, and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? I gotta get this job now, So I called the chairman of the board, and I said, okay, now I've done like 3 or 4 interviews. You have to let me know what's happening here. And yes, it worked out. It worked out well. I thought, that it was a good sign when the President Obama got elected, voted in that year, and I said, okay, this must be a good sign, So in 2008, I got the job, and it's been history ever since then.
Right. What attracted you so much besides the pantry? Like, what are the greatest qualities of Pronto? Like, if you were telling someone that knew nothing about it, what would you say?
Oh my gosh. I would say, well, for me, a person of faith, believing, in the Lord and that He can help you and He can help other people. I believe for me, that was what I felt like that was the grain, the path that was leading me there. Seeing people come in, knowing that, gosh, to come in and just to ask for food, I mean, how does one put themselves in those shoes that never had to do that before? And to do that and to see the need, I just felt like that's the draw right there. If you could empathize, if you could imagine yourself in those shoes, then you could succeed in helping the other person.
Now, in 2008, did they already have the building that they have now?
They did. It was maybe 3 years old.
Oh, okay.
At that point, I think they opened that building in 2005.
Right. So what are the things you're most proud of that you've been involved in at Pronto? Like what programs and what, besides obviously the food distribution, which is extraordinary and has reached, unfortunately very, epic proportions, but besides food distro?
So there are times when something is a success and you have dreams for it to last forever, but then there are times where it's only there for a while. One of the things, even though it didn't last a long time, was a success for me, was knowing that there were homeless out there too. How do you do more for the homeless? And we had written a grant. We got funding for that program, and we started that program where we collaborated with churches. We went around, as you remember, picked up homeless, even sometimes slept overnight with them, and in the different churches, fed them, gave them an opportunity to shower, gave them resources, and then sent them on their way in the morning. And I felt like that was one of the changes that we did at Pronto that was so, iconic in a way, because it meant that now we're looking at transition. How is a community transitioning, and what are the needs? Don't be afraid to make changes, even if the change doesn't last. You are addressing a need.
Right.
And so from that moment on, I feel like we've done that. We've expanded programs to help with citizenship class, English classes, computer classes. Now we're doing this whole thing about workforce, because that's a big need in the community now as well.
Right. And so you're assisting in what way with employment?
We do resumes, we do mock interviews, we help place people. We reach out to potential employers, we have job fairs.
Right.
Anything. We give vouchers to individuals to go into the thrift center and get clothes for work. And we also provide funding for clients who feel like, maybe they want to go back to school. Maybe they want to get a certificate, or something. And we partner with other organizations to provide different trainings and workshops.
Okay. Now, we didn't touch upon your education, but I read where you are a Saluki, I think, right? The Southern Illinois.
I did go to Southern Illinois University.
Aren't they the Saluki?
When I was in the military.
Okay.
Military.
Right.
Children, marriage, school, traveling, you could do it all.
Right. And you were able to obviously get your degree.
Right, got my degree. And then when I got out, I also I went to Capella University and got my degree and my master's there. And yeah.
Right. Okay. So, and I think it's public knowledge, right, that you are on your last few days?
I am. You see all this gray hair? All this gray hair? It's time for me to, step back a little bit. But you know what? I cannot, look at Pronto and say that I'm going to disappear. I always have to be involved. I always have to be involved. I probably will be walking with a cane and a wheelchair, and I'll still be involved in some kind of way.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you envision retirement from Pronto, what goals do you have? What hobbies are you going to take up or continue or expand upon? What are you going to travel? What's your plan now?
Yeah. So first of all, my plan is one of the things is for my house, to get my house in order, because I work long hours and I feel like, I have to give some love back to my home and my house and my husband, who's been retired since COVID, and, and he's so patient with me, coming home late and being away on weekends, doing things. So my house in order. I also need to give back to my grandkids, and that's really, I think, the main thing why I want to retire, because I want to be a part of their life. I want to influence them. I want to help them along the way. So I know that if it wasn't for my parents helping me with my children, their grandchildren, things wouldn't have worked out as nicely as you wouldn't have that rebound. And I feel like I want to give that back to my grandchildren and be a part of their life and help my children. I do have one grandchild who's very sickly, and I want to give more attention to him as well.
Yeah, that loving care of a grandparent is, especially in Hispanic communities and communities of color, is so important, right? Abuela, abuelo, depending on what your name is, to your grandchild, it's such a great memory to have.
And it's hard in these days.
Right.
It's not like when I was growing up, my grandparents, they were part of our lives, and now that everybody's so far apart, and children are in Maryland and Texas, and I traveled all over. So, yeah, now it's time to reel it in a little bit.
Awesome.
So, yes, I do want to do traveling, and I want to make sure that I have time to take up a hobby or two and take care of my health.
Okay. All right. That's important. So if I were to ask you to share a fun fact with our viewers today of something maybe that most people don't know about you, could you come up with one?
A fun fact that they don't know about me. Oh my goodness, could I come up with a fun fact? I'm kind of a boring person, I think.
Well, you belong to a couple of boards, right?
Yes, I do. I belong to a couple of boards, and I feel like, being in the community, I will continue with those boards as well. But I think a fun fact goes along with retiring and a hobby, and I do want to continue that. I love to dance, and I feel like when you're dancing, you feel alive,
Right.
And the music
Right.
and the moves and the freedom that you get from that. And I think this is another time in my life to explore that.
Good for you.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
Yes. I want to see you dancing more often. That is awesome. So I've asked, this is my third podcast today, right? And I've asked the previous two guests that we've had if you were able to give my daughters some really good, share some wisdom and some good advice with them. Mia's now 14, you know her well. Ashley is now 19, and she's in nursing school.
Beautiful.
What could you tell young ladies, and in particular young ladies of color, that have a similar background to yours, multicultural, and maybe not in a majority in the space that they're in? What type of advice could you give them?
Well, I would tell them that they are beautiful. They're beautiful inside and outside. No matter what the world tells you, no matter what you see on TV and the media, know that you are beautiful and that you need to protect that beauty.
Right.
And you need to make sure that nobody takes advantage of that beauty in you. As soon as you let somebody into your heart, make sure that they are worthy to be there.
Right. That's amazing. That is an outstanding answer from Mia and Ashley and all the young ladies out there and all the young men. Especially today when we're dealing with social media and influencers, right? And all of the economic bullying that's going on in our society. And that's tough because everyone needs to have the same things or the Jordans or whatever it is, right? So that's a beautiful statement. So final words.
Okay.
I just want to tell you that I love you and the person that you are, what you represent, and how you inspire me and our community. The results that you've driven in your lifetime have changed the world. And I've seen it, and I know it, and I felt it. And, as part of the champion circle, we can say that you truly are a community champion, and you're part of this chosen family. So please know that the podcast is here for you to come back and talk to us about your next chapter. And if you have any recommendations, please talk to me. But, we look forward to continuing to partner with you and to collaborate and to make differences. So I am proud of you. I thank you for being here with us today.
It's an honor. It's my honor. Thank you. Thank you.
So we are signing off from the Champion Circle. Thanks to Liga de Justicia Foundation and Liga de Justicia Abogados. We are saying so long. Thank you. The Champion Circle would like to thank Liga de Justicia Abogados for their support and sponsorship of this program. Liga de Justicia practices in personal injury, in trip and fall, slip and fall, car accidents, as well as immigration. We thank them for their support.